Ayan na. Ayan na mga kameta. Ito na tayo. Sabi ko magpahinga tayo today eh. Sabi ko pag-usapan na lang natin itong ni Robin Hood at si Bato, yung mga talagang mga top expert senators natin diyan. Sana pag-usapan natin yung kanilang chacha, eche boreche, yung mga kung ano mga proposals nila diyan. Yun ang sana pag-usapan natin katulad ng sinabi natin dun sa meta natin kahapon, yung spontaneous version. So sabi ko today sana mag-OBS version tayo. Pero ito, umaga pa lang, may nakuha tayong mga notification dito sa isang bagong article, no, na sinulat ni paring Jarius Bondok. So, he's one of the most celebrated or at least one of the most prominent columnists sa Pilipinas. I think pati si Vice Ganda nag-interview na sa kanya dati. Ganun po ang level niya. Ako hindi pa ako na-interview ni Vice Ganda, pero na-interview po natin si OG Diaz. Yan, OG. Diba? Tayo talaga. Ako, OG ako in original gangster, diba? So itong kaibigan natin si Jarius Bundok who very kindly used to interview me a lot dun sa kanyang radio show. Syempre parang maaga yata yung oras niya sa radio show niya, hindi ko nakabutan, minsan pasensya na lang. Tsaka meron tayong exclusivity kasi nun sa GMA. I think DZBB lang yata ako pwede or something like that. Anyway, so I had a lot of interaction with him. Kasama rin kami ni Jarius Bundok nun, nagkaroon ng hearings sa Kongreso before ukol sa West Philippine Sea. So I'm very impressed by his thoughts, by his courage of self-expression. And if I'm not mistaken, yung isang article din niya yung kino-quote nila Ma'am Cynthia or was it basta a couple of senators. I think if I'm not mistaken, si Tulfo, Senator Tulfo was also citing yata yung one of his articles ukol dun sa issue ng sino mga potentially involved sa hoarding nung sibuyas, nung talaga at the height of the sibuyas crisis na meron tayo a few months ago, no. So kaya ako, I don't dismiss when Jarius Bundok comes up with interesting articles, etc. Of course, tayo ay columnist naman dun sa kabila, sa Philippine Daily Inquirer. Of course, number 1 lang naman ang Philippine Daily Inquirer. Pero magaling din ang Philippine Star, di ba? Parang yan parang Harvard, Yale. Okay, mamaya na tayo dyan. Magkakalat na naman tayo. No, ito mga kameta, ha? So, kung sabi ko mamayang gabi, mamayang gabi pag-usapan natin itong Robin Hood Padilla, super expert sa constitutional change. Yung sana pag-usapan natin with Bato, yung pinakamasipag na senator natin, recent memory. But boom, biglang nakita natin, ito may notification doon at ito yung lumabas. So sabi ko, bigyan natin ng pansin yan. And in fact, a very interesting couple of names came out, including the name of a former DICT undersecretary, and I think at some point even acting secretary, who also happened to be a top military official in the past, and who happens to be also someone who was appointed under President Duterte, back in the day. So hindi ito yung quote-unquote dilawan or kakamping, etc. This is someone from military background. So I'm talking about the name of former Chief of Department of Information Communications and also Undersecretary at DICT, si General Eliseo Rio, Eliseo Rio Jr. Now, I also wrote about him before because remember nung time na nagkaroon ng controversy when pumayag nung ating Sandatang Lakas na buksan yung ating mga telecommunications towers or communication systems dyan sa loob ng mga military bases to establishment of Chinese telecommunications company, di ba? Kasi di ba nagkaroon tayo ng third telecom noon, paano ni Duterte. So, in that context, I was researching a lot about DICT, ano yung plan ng DICT, how to make sure na hindi ma-compromise yung communication channels natin, hindi magkakaroon ng backdoor dun sa ating communications critical infrastructure. So, yung pangalan ni General Eliseo Rio, actually Jr., kept on popping up in the research I was doing back then. And then now, suddenly, nung I was going through the notes, biglang boom, lumabas naman yung pangalan niya. So, basahin natin mga kameta ito, because this is an interesting thing. Again, let me first, ganitong style natin kameta. Pag-usapan muna natin what is in the news right now na mahalaga. At least para sa akin mahalaga. At sa tingin ko mahalaga na pag-usapan natin mga kameta. And then let me look at the different sides of this argument and then I'll give my own point of view. So usually ganun po yung style natin. So, ito caveat again, I'm not here to say there's a problem with the election proper. or results or something. No, I'm just here to discuss it first and then later on i-examine natin yung different kind of arguments very shortly because may pupuntahan pa tayo, medyo traffic lang, we're trying to get through it. Anyway, basahin muna natin itong artikulo ni Jairus Bundok. Labas lang, today yun, di ba? So kaninang lunchtime lang, hindi, kaninang umaga na lumabas, 12 a.m. So, ayon sa kanya, poll watchdog NAMFREL uncovered software flaws in the 2022 automated election. Alright? COMELEC ignored its warnings of potential cheating. Hindi ako ito, post natin niya. Again, this is not what I'm saying. Let me be very clear, ha? Let me be very clear. Post natin yung article mismo para ma-check nyo on your own, ha? I'm just reading here, mga kameta. This is not my own argument. I'll tell you about my own argument later on. Okay, ito basahin lang natin. Ito yung sinabi ni Jairus Bundok. Ito so retired General COMELEC ignored its warnings of potential cheating. So ayon kay retired General Eliseo Rio, this is another proof that the presidential VP race was allegedly rigged, and there has been no explanations from COMELEC. This unfolds while a retired colonel poises impeachment raps against 5 poll commissioners for refusing to present records. Also, as the Supreme Court deadline lapses for COMELEC to justify such refusal. So, NAMFREL has posted on its website on 89-page final report, ito yung pangalan, Final Report 2022 National Local Elections. Yung pages 22 to 24 detail its discovery of potential discrepancies. So, NAMFREL po, ito yung election watchdog na nandun nung panahon pa ni Marcos Sr. No? At sila yung nag-booking ng mga kalokohan nangyari na 1986, hence setting the stage, of course, for the walkout, and later on, of course, for Corazon Aquino to take over. So, essentially, NAMFREL was very much part of the popular revolt against the former dictatorship. So this is hindi ito basta-bastang grupo lang, no? Hindi ito yung mga nagpop up ng last year or biglang dating consultancy, biglang naging survey agencies. Hindi yung mga ganun style, alright? So, Rio has been questioned. So, this is General Rio, former acting secretary of the ICT, former undersecretary of the ICT, former top general in AFP, former appointee of President Duterte. So, Rio has been questioning the deluge of 20 million plus votes for President and VP an hour from ballotings and last May 9. Physically impossible, the electronic communications engineer says. Kasi may engineering background po siya eh. I think electrical engineering if I'm not mistaken. At their close at 7 p.m. on May 9, the 107,345 precincts had first to complete 9 COMELEC steps before transmitting VCM counts to the transparency survey. The 9 steps take more than 30 minutes. Longest is the VPN printing of 8 copies of all the votes of all candidates for president, VP, senator, party list, congressman, and local positions. Rio was Secretary of Information Communication and thus COMELEC Advisory Committee Chairman for the 2019 election. So hindi lang siya former top officials sa DICT under President Duterte, siya rin po ay kasama sa Advisory Committee ng COMELEC. No? Siya po yung chairman ng Advisory Committee dun sa COMELEC for the previous election in 2019. For 65 years, to put things into context, ito yung in-explain ni Jairus, the National Citizens Movement for Free Elections, otherwise known as NAMFREL, has led voter education, election monitoring, quick counts. It was COMELEC's overseer for random manual audit of the 2022 results. It was among many reviewers of COMELEC's 2022 preparation. Alright, so I suggest you guys go and read this. There are more and more details here. Paki-check yan. Ipopost ko rin yan. Now, there's an interesting, I think, back and forth here. Let me just post also some background because few months earlier, again, there were some concerns raised by the former top DICT generals. I suggest you guys check it. Again, everything we say mga kameta is based on facts, based on data, based on news. So, ito po. So, ito yung si General Rio, Engineer Rio. Ito yung sinasabi niya, preserve poll transmission logs. No? So, if there are any concerns about the credibility of the transmission process, you have to have some footprint, no? And one of the ways to detect the footprint is to look at the logs, no? So now there are concerns whether accessibility of these logs and other kinds of important footprints, markers, is intact, no? So yun ang criticism na sinasabi nila, no? So just to put things in context, I'm going back again to argument ni I'm going back again to dun sa article ni Jairus. Sorry about this. Yeah. Ito. So, ayan sa kanya, ito. The COMELEC posted the hash code in its website in February 2022 for Info Technologies Pursual. As safeguard, it is printed on the diagnostic report from VCM startup. NAMFREL's IT team noticed something wrong during elections end-to-end demonstration of the election system on March 22, 2022. The VCM system hash code shown during the demo did not match what was published during the second final trusted build ayon sa NAMFREL's IT team. NAMFREL emailed Commissioner Marlon Casquiejo about it the next day. No reply. Instead, Comelec posted on March 24 on his website a supposed admission by his international certifier Pro-VNV of human typographical error. So typo lang daw yung nangyari. NAMFREL again wrote on March 25, seeking 5 documents. Those pertain to Pro-VNV and coding in compliance with hashcode protocols. It sought independent verification. Again, wala daw reply ayon dito sa article ni Jairus Bondok. So, ito yung kino-quote niya from NAMFREL. So, ito po yung sinasabi ng NAMFREL. The process of building components into a system which included the generation of the system hash was never shown publicly aside from the VCM system hash. No other hash codes were shared for public check. Without the system hash generation in full view of stakeholders, the source code that NAMFREL saw, ito yung word, a keyword, source code, and reviewed could be different from what was used by the VCMs on election day. In layman terms, ito yung sinasabi ng NAMFREL, this software used on the VCM on election day could have been edited. Okay? Ito po yung sinasabi ng NAMFREL. Okay? Flimsy. Ayon sa NAMFREL Chairman Lito Averia, yung dinidescribe niya in an interview, yung alibi na typographical error lang daw yon. Medyo hanash lang yan. Comelec's multi-million-dollar contractor shouldn't have manually encoded the hashcode. Ayon kay Jairus, for accuracy, IT professionals simply copy and paste it to website or other electronic documents. Averia came upon the hashcode discrepancy minutes into the Comelec demo. Right? Flimsy, yun din ang word na ginamit ni General Rio in a separate interview. Lawyer commissioners shouldn't have believed Pro-VNV, yung explanation na typo lang siya. They should have tried to understand the technology. So, just to be clear, once AFP Deputy Chief po yan si General Rio, so Deputy Chief siya ng AFP for Research and Development. So, ito matalinong tao yan, engineering background. Ayon sa kanya, the flood of results by 8:02 p.m. election night was meant to condition voters. Okay, medyo ibang klase nito. Okay. Basahin niyo na yan, alright? So, medyo next level yung claims dito, ha? Alright, medyo next level yung claims dito. Ayon naman kay retired Colonel Leonardo Odono, in the exercise of my constitutional right of access to information, medyo may concern siya doon. Ignored since November. Para sa akin, there is a concern about, quote, conspiracy of silence. So, in short, may mga unexplained gaps dyan, at the very least. And therefore, there is growing pressure, at least call on the Supreme Court and other organs of the state to step in and kind of provide general understanding of what's going on there. Is it flimsy ba or legit ba yung explanation on some of the discrepancy that was explained? Kasi yung isang possibility I'm just explaining this, was yung source code ay potentially edited. Whoa, okay. So mga kameta, tignan natin kung saan papunta itong kaso na ito, pupunta sa Supreme Court, etc. Obviously, some would argue that moot and academic na yung issue dahil andyan na yung presidente, tapos na, nag-move on ng mga tao. And, di ba, ang joke dito sa Pilipinas is, walang natatalo sa Philippines, either nadayaan ka or, I mean, it's not a laughing matter, but sometimes, I mean, hello, 2016 election, VP race. Either nadayaan ka or legit na nanalo ka or whatever, something like that, okay? Now, I just said what's out there, okay? Balikan natin yan mga kameta, don't worry about it. But let me get back to this mga kameta, because ito kasing concern ko mga kameta. Okay, if you want to run that argument, so in principle, you could argue that, of course, certain discrepancies have to be properly explained and commission elections have to be absolutely clear about these things and provide a really credible, authenticated, objective answers and explanations para walang bahid na duda. Now, one issue here, mga kameta, is this. For a long time, the opposition has been raising concerns about the counting process. But the thing kasi, mga kameta, is no less than the leading opposition or leading alternative to Marcos or Uniteam, Leni Robredo, her camp did not object. to the results, final results. So this is from May 24, 2022. You can read it yourself. So presidential candidate Vice President Leni Robredo will not raise any objections on all certificates of canvass COC in the recently concluded general elections, her camp said on Tuesday. So this is May, weeks into after the elections. No? So yung camp mismo nila, walang sinabi. So si Makalintal, si Attorney Makalintal, Romulo Makalintal, ayon sa kanya, we interpose no objection to the inclusion of all the certificates of canvass for the president from the various provincial and city boards of canvassers found, boards of canvassers found by this honorable board to be authentic and duly executed. So, ito yung camp mismo ni Leni ay hindi nag-raise ng any issue. In fact, they didn't raise any issue at all about all of the canvasses. So, that is one concern here. So, and of course, this was welcomed by the Marcos camp. They lauded it as a positive development. Sabi ni, dating spokesman ni Marcos Jr., si Vic Rodriguez, we would like to recognize and thank the patriotism exhibited by Vice President Leni Robredo for recognizing the integrity and result of the recently concluded general election. So, this is one issue, mga kameta. If there were really serious problems and they concern about, vote count and alleged irregularities, this was raised on the very day of election. Why weeks later you had the leading opposition candidate not raising a direct concern? Yun yung isang issue dito, mga kameta. You explain it to me. I don't know. I'm sure mas may alam kayo dito. But that's my point. There's another thing we have to keep in mind, mga kameta. Oops, ba't akong nawala? Wait lang mga kameta. Alam ko na-miss niyo ako, kaya balik ko yung sarili ko. Saan ba ako? Okay, one second. Okay, mama. Huwag maingay dyan. Okay. Huwag na may mga maingay sa likod. One second. Ito, mga kameta. One second. Balikan natin itong issue na to. Ba't ako nawala? Hindi, ito. Ito, mga kameta. The other thing kasi is, if you look at the surveys, I'll go to the survey shortly, no? The thing is, ang taong bayan rin, mukhang more or less nag-accept. And more or less. I mean, look at the survey, for instance, more than 4 out of 5 Filipinos accepted the result of the elections. So this is the survey that came out by July. I think it was taken June siguro, the month earlier. So karamihan ng Pilipino tanggap na nila yung resulta ng election. So that's why I'm saying politically you could say this is moot and academic. I'm not saying there's no value in pushing for clarification of this issue. I think there's perfectly a reason for doing that. If indeed there are certain discrepancies or unexplained issues, because after all, this could be a problem in succeeding elections, right? Hindi lang in previous elections. So this is not only retrospective, it's also prospective, no? But the thing is, politically speaking, the camp of Leni Robredo has accepted the result. Majority of Filipinos have accepted the result. Unless you have a conspiracy theory that all survey agencies were also joking around. Because the thing is, the 31 million that came out is not too different from what was coming out in most of the surveys I saw, including surveys by people I personally trust, right? Now, hindi natin pinag-usapan dito yung mga Google Trends, yung mga ganyan-ganyan bagay. Alright? So, this is the thing. Now, for me, what is not moot and academic, and I think what it should be paid more attention to, which I surprisingly don't see the opposition paying as much attention to, especially mga key figures, thought leaders ng opposition, is this, mga kameta. And I got to know this because I had ang dami kong mga na-attend ng mga speaking engagement after elections. In one of those talks in Bangkok, although I was joining them via online, one of the election watchers had a big concern about the elections. Not the count part, because this is my thing. We're too much focused on the count part, which is downstream of the election process. But we have to also look at the midstream and the upstream. And when you look at the midstream and upstream, you're looking at cheating prior to the voting process. So I think one problem in the strategy of some of the critics is that they're too much focusing on the count part, and then we get into IT issues. But what is a serious problem is the pre-voting process, the pre-voting allegations of cheating. So, vote buying daw is really the big problem, big flaw, ayon sa group na to. So, let me just read the report. Ito yung International Election Observers Mission report published on its website on August 18. So ito yung Asian Network for Free Elections said that the Commission on Elections composed at the time of appointees of then President Rodrigo was able to conduct, quote, largely peaceful and technically sound election despite a number of shortcomings. Alright? Ito sa Rappler pa to okay okay let me bring out the exact quote para mabasa niyo yung mga kameta. Alright? Di ba parang yun naman yung ginagawa natin dito. So ito so ayon sa observer na yan, technically sound, meaning yung accusations by NAMFREL perhaps are not as solid, or perhaps NAMFREL has an information that these guys didn't have. So ayon sa kanila, again the elections was largely peaceful and technically sound despite a number of shortcomings, but it looks like the shortcomings were not sufficient to discard the result. Ayon sa kanya, election management in the Philippines remains of a better quality than most Asian countries, even though we can witness a concerning backslide in transparency that needs to be addressed. And that's where I say exactly, we have to have more transparency, especially in source code, other technical issues. Now, on election day, the failure of hundreds of vote counting machines and related XD cards not only highlighted the age of the material used, but also poor contingency planning and communications on the part of the COMELEC. Now, one bigger concern though they raise, mga kameta, is vote buying. Yun daw yung medyo alanganin, no? So let me show again mga kameta. Let me show again itong report. Para basahin yan. Ito mga kameta. So ito. Check it out what they're saying here. Ito yung parating kong sinasabi, wala naman nakikinig. Sabi ko, yun ang dapat i-focus natin. Yung issue ng vote buying is very, very serious. Ayon sa observers, they reported that the going rate for a voter was usually between 100 pesos and 2,000. Parang medyo mura yan Parang mga narinig ko, way more than that, up to 15,000. Anyway, per candidate in the areas they were deployed, depending on the position and competitiveness of each elections. This can quickly add up when several candidates for different positions offer cash to voters who often see the election period as a way to collect some extra income. Ayon sa group na yan, no, yung NAMFREL. Incumbents were more often seen to benefit from such malpractices, but the impunity afforded to those who violate campaign finance laws ensures that all sorts of candidates and parties engage in vote buying. So ito yung mga ebidensya na nilabas nila, yung mga, di ba? Ito yung mga to, di ba? Ito yung mga pinost-post nila dito, mga kameta, na mga evidences, etc. So I really suggest you guys read it, because for me, ito talaga yung malaking issue talaga sa ating mga elections, sa vote buying. And this goes back also the issue of party. Because if you don't have political parties, saan ka kukuha ng pera? At kung kukunin mo yung pera sa mga ibang businessman, oligarchs, o sarili mong pera, then alam na natin ang mangyayari niyan, di ba? Ano magiging kalakaran dyan? Di talagang negosyo talaga yan. So ito yung mga pinost nila doon ng mga grupo na yan. So yan ang sinasabi ko na medyo kulang doon sa strategy ng opposition. Why are they not focused on the issue of vote buying? So ano yan? Parang tanggap na lang natin na yun. Yung nga sinasabi ko, if you have a concern about the election integrity, don't only look at downstream, look at the upstream and the midstream. And this is really what's lacking as far as election analysis or election integrity analysis is concerned. Nevertheless, mga kameta, let's wait and see what's gonna happen when it comes to this moves to, to seek greater transparency pagdating sa election results. So please read itong very interesting article ni Jairus. Nasaan na tayo? Yan, ni Jairus Bundok, no? Pakibasa yan so that you can also follow through. And I look forward to more question and answers with you. Parang naging classroom. More interaction with you guys. Maraming salamat, guys. I'll keep it here. Magpasalamat lang ako sa inyo. Very mabilisan lang kasi kailangan natin umalis. But I just felt very important na hindi ko na ipaano lang yan, spontaneous yan. Mahalaga talaga na i-OBS analysis talaga natin para makita niyo talaga yung makita niyo talaga yung mga quotations and all. Alright? Maraming salamat again. Maraming salamat kay Michael Uy. Maraming salamat kay Mendoza Larry for joining us. For Ma'am Jocelyn Lumberry, as always, I appreciate your inputs. I have more to say about this. Continue natin yan bukas, mga kameta. Because one of the concerns I have is that election result contestation denialism also has, for me, some perverse impact potentially on making sure the Philippine opposition is more competitive and we can better fight for the future of democracy in this country. Pero balikan natin yan later on. For now, let me just say thank you. Maraming salamat. And looking forward to more discussions and analysis with you guys. Salamat.